Everything's doing. Look,
All right,
forget
here
about
we go.
that stuff. Hey, we jumped the gun, okay? None of us here are doctors. So, please.
Who's that?
Scott.
No, they're quiet now.
Okay. All right, so let's begin the meeting. My name is Peter Olkers. I'm Vice Chair of the Needham Conservation Commission. I'd like to open this meeting of Thursday, June 24th, 2021. All right, so not a super crowded agenda for tonight, but we do have minutes to look at some point. We can do that at the end, maybe. Enforcement and violation.
No real updates. Still waiting for a draft of the letter for 185 Brookside Road from Town Council.
Oh gosh, okay. So that
Yeah.
COC is still in the air. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. All
Sure.
right, so let me do I guess this the script is still appropriate given the extension, so I'll read through. As a preliminary matter, this is Peter Olkers, Conservation Commission Vice Chair. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Artie?
Here.
Steve?
Here.
Sue?
Here.
Allison?
Here.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Debbie?
Here.
Clay?
Here.
And then Clay sent me the anticipated speakers on the agenda, some of whom I see here. So please respond in the affirmative. Cindy McGowan?
Here.
Karen Catrone? Is Karen expected to be here? Does anyone know? We don't know. Okay, so Paul Hemond?
Here.
Scott Ritter?
Here.
Scott Henderson?
Here.
Flavia Monanari and Matthew Stutz. So they're the applicants. Scott, are they planning on attending?
I did forward the email to them and connected with them this afternoon, so I am expecting them.
Okay. It's very likely we'll have an opportunity to talk because we'll be continuing most likely this hearing. All right. Thank you very much. Good evening. This open meeting of the Town of Needham Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we've been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of the public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For this meeting, the Needham Conservation Commission is convening by Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. The general public is allowed and encouraged to ask questions during the meeting when directed by the commission chair and through use of the raise hand feature associated with the Zoom meeting app. Those that have questions or comments regarding a particular hearing will be called upon in the order they raise their hand. So please be patient. Meeting materials. All supporting materials have been provided to members of this body and are available on the Conservation Commission website. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. We're now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. The chair will introduce each hearing on the agenda. I will introduce the applicant and/or their consultant to begin their project presentation. After they conclude their presentation, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comments or questions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you, and please state your name before speaking. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. So that's our script. We can move to the first item. I was thinking 1625 Great Plain. Does that make sense? This is a.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, so this is DEP file 234869. All right, who's here to represent?
The homeowners are here and the builder. I don't know if anybody is here from Riverhawk Environmental. Did Riverhawk send you guys their plans for the stormwater runoff?
Yeah, so we received plans yesterday and I forwarded them to our chair of the commission to review. And she had some comments and revisions that she wanted done, which they sent over today. So as you know, they were due a week ago. So we're probably, the commission could close the hearing tonight if they felt they had enough information, and then we could issue the permit at the next meeting.
So could you clarify for me what kind of additional information that you're looking for?
Because the commission requires the week to review the information. And since we just got it yesterday and today, and the chair is not at the meeting tonight, that we would be looking to her for her comments and such.
So could you put that in very plain language, what that means for us in terms of starting the project?
So you would get your permit in 2 weeks.
Contingent upon another hearing?
Contingent on review of the information that was submitted, and if there were any other revisions that were required, we would let you know ahead of time so that you could get the information in a week before. But I don't anticipate that, so you should have your permits issued for the next meeting.
So we can, in theory, start work in 2 more weeks.
There's a 10-day appeal period once you get your permit, where DEP or 10 abutters could request. What's the word I'm looking for?
I mean, we've been through so many 10-day and 20-day waiting periods at this point. I mean, seriously. I mean, if someone had an issue, I would hope that they would have spoken up at this point by now. I'm just curious, the stormwater runoff thing, is that something that everybody in town who's doing a project has to do, or is that just us? Because there's wetlands in the back. I'm just curious. I see
The town has a stormwater bylaw at this point.
So every contractor putting in a house in Needham has got to also conform to these same guidelines. Is that an accurate?
If they're constructing a new house, or if there's an addition that I think it's.
Yeah, and that's what my question lies too. I mean, so why is this getting pushed to the next meeting or whatever in the permits? Because that stormwater that whole system of that anyways goes through like Dave Roche, and they submit that all gets put into that permit when it goes through. So it's required by Needham, so I'm a little confused on why that's being a hang up a little bit, so.
Because essentially we told the applicant and everyone at the last meeting that we needed all the information by last Thursday
And
to
you
be
do
heard
understand
on this.
that time frame is unreasonable to hire a stormwater specialist, an engineer. In our case, we hired Riverhawk Engineering to hire someone, get them to the site to dig the test holes, analyze the soil, put it all together, to give a homeowner 1 week is all you're giving a homeowner to accomplish that. It's an unreasonable expectation when the homeowner, by the way, has no idea about any of this. So this
Peter,
is all new.
this is all you.
Yeah, so let me step in at this point and let
Okay.
me just sort of try to bring this back to what's going on and what we can do. So first of all, if things are lacking in an application, the idea is that applicant had plenty of time to put everything that was needed in an application. The hearing allows you to address those things before we close the hearing. The time frame is short, but that's actually to make it convenient for most applicants so that they don't have to wait as much time. So on the other hand, I think we always ask, can you do this? Should we put you on the schedule for next week or the week after? So there is attention to some of the problems people might run into in making these schedules. But the problem is that the initial application was inadequate in some way.
So
And so that's what needed to be
the
addressed.
initial application, is that the building permit application or some other application?
What
that
you
we-
submitted to the to Concom,
I don't know who ComCom is.
that's us.
Oh, okay.
So I
we
understand you're working with a lot of different committees, getting a lot of different permits.
Well, the problem is that the building department approved our project. Nobody ever included you guys, unbeknownst to us. So we're then starting this process essentially all over again with you guys. So if there was something lacking in our application, it's just, it's been an extraordinary situation. I just, okay.
All right, so hold on. So I think as Deb described, we're able to actually close the hearing tonight and then make it contingent on Janet's review, the chair's review of the stormwater report that was given to us.
Oops.
So that is a possibility. We cannot approve a notice of intent though during this meeting if we don't have all the information.
Sure, okay, so, but you can close the hearing, but that still doesn't mean it's not like a digger can show up tomorrow and start taking the foundation.
No, I mean, there's a legal time frame that we need to respect.
Yeah.
And that's just the fact of the matter. And
So
and I'm sorry if that's inconvenient for the project. I mean,
Well-
it is a constraint that a lot of people sort of run across in these sorts of situations.
Okay, so just let me know. So essentially, I just want to understand, you guys are going to review the information that was given to you by Riverhawk Environmental. You will come back to us if you have any concerns. And we will assume, if we don't hear from you, that everything is copacetic with his recommendations. And we will get a building permit within 2 weeks.
Yes,
Is
if
that
everything works out,
reasonable?
if everything works out well, that's
So
the
it's
way.
not, we don't issue building permits,
That's
though,
right.
just to
No,
clarify.
no, no.
You would get a order of conditions, which is a permit from conservation. The
Okay.
building that's a whole separate
So
thing.
you guys will issue that, and then the building department will issue the building permit.
I
And
would-
if
yes.
and if you have concerns about what Riverhawk Environmental has proposed, you will contact whom?
So we did have concerns yesterday, just to be clear, when we got the first iteration of the information,
Okay,
which was forwarded to the chair. So I contacted Riverhawk directly and sent them the comments from the chair yesterday.
Okay.
So that's what I would
Did
do
that have
again.
to do with
unless-
the 4,300 square feet of potentially of hardscape, or what did that
No,
have
it
to-
had to do with the elevations that they were proposing to put the dry wells weren't going to work.
Okay,
So,
and so he's addressing that, I'm assuming.
right, yeah.
Okay, all right, and I don't know if you saw, we are doing a gravel driveway to try to mitigate any kind of stormwater issues. Because that was brought to our attention by them, so we're doing what we can. Okay,
We greatly appreciate it. No, once again, we're sorry for the inconvenience, but it does seem like there were significant issues that came up when reviewing the stormwater. So we need to, and it's really now a discussion primarily between the chair, who's a stormwater expert, and the
Is
conservation.
the irony not lost on any one of you guys that we have a stormwater drainage ditch running the length of our yard? I mean, seriously. It just makes me, it's extraordinary. Yeah. I
It's a
know.
legal
It's an
system that's
antiquated-
applied.
it's an
It's a
antiquated
legal system applied to everyone, in
Oh
the
my
same way.
God.
Yeah.
Okay. All righty.
All
Okay,
right.
so, do we need to be on a hearing in 2 weeks, or are we, just gonna wait for a happy piece of mail, to arrive that says, go?
It's not guaranteed. I mean, so if there are issues, but my understanding, that was the only piece of this puzzle. Everyone else was really happy with everything else you were doing.
Okay.
So,
All right, so if
unless
Riverhawk can
that's,
come up with a good plan, you guys are happy.
I need to do due diligence and run around and ask if any of the commissioners, have any additional questions.
And another
if they're
idea
here.
just to put out there is, if you wanted to start putting in the erosion controls for the project while you have this period, you're more than welcome to start there, so you don't have that piece to do.
Well, that should take an hour.
Just trying to help.
I thank you.
Mm,
Sorry, but, okay. All right, you guys, well.
All right, so before you leave, and well, you
continue,
can leave
yeah.
anytime you want. You're not required to be here, but I do want to do what I have to do and go around and ask the commissioners if they have any other questions or comments. So let me do that now. Artie,
I'm good.
Stephen,
No comment.
Allison, Sue.
No,
All right, so Deb, anything else to add? No? Okay.
no, just, I will let you know as soon as I, know if there's any issues.
Okay, so
super.
the idea would be to close this now and not to wait around for next meeting to close it, or is that what you were proposing, Deb? Is it?
You probably,
as
I
easy
mean,
as that?
you might as well close an issue next meeting in case Janet has other comments.
Okay, so we'll hold on that. It doesn't make a difference
No, it doesn't.
in terms of timing and when you get your permit. So, all right, so I'll take a motion to continue.
So moved.
Second.
Right, all in favor? Artie,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Sue,
aye.
Allison? Peter, aye. All right, so this will be continued until next week. I
Okay.
mean, until 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Is that actually 2 weeks? The
Now,
July?
are we gonna run into
Yeah.
4th of July and everybody disappears to go on vacation and there's won't be a meeting and then it's 4 weeks, or are we good?
Now I think we have to have a meeting, but
Okay. I'm gonna hold you to that.
I think it's the 8th, July
Is
8th.
It
this
is.
is there.
Okay.
There is a scheduled meeting. Yes. for
All right.
July 8th.
Okay, guys, have a good evening.
Thank you. All right. All right. So next item on the agenda is a notice of intent for 83 Rolling Lane. We don't have a DEP file number. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Correct.
Okay, very good. So we'll be continuing this till July 8th at the earliest. All right, so who's representing? Please state your name.
For the record, my name is Scott Henderson of Henderson Consulting. I'm the project civil engineer. You'll see that there are 3 Scott Hendersons logged in here. That is not just 3 different computers I'm logged in with. Also here, the applicant, Matthew Stutz and Flavia Montanari. There's Matt there. And the other one that the camera's off, that's John Justo of Justo Landscaping. He's the GC that will be building the project. He's just keeping up to speed with everything that's
Very
happening.
good. Thanks for clearing
So,
that. All right, so take us through what your project is.
okay, I'm going to share my screen. Can everybody see that existing conditions plan?
Mhm.
There, okay. So as was stated, this is a notice of intent for proposed work within a buffer zone to a wetland resource area filed under both the local bylaw regulations and the Wetlands Protection Act. The project is located at 83 Rolling Lane. It's a property located on the north side of Rolling Lane. It's surrounded on all sides by developed single-family home properties. And this site is also approved with a single-family home, driveway, various landscape areas and lawn, and associated utilities. In terms of the site in general, the topography is broken up into 2 areas. The front of the site, front half of it, of the house and the front lawn drain toward Rolling Lane. You won't see topographic information on that portion of the survey, as that's outside of our sort of limit of or scope of the project. And the rear portion of the property and the focal point of this generally slopes from the back of the house to the north toward a wetland resource area located along the north edge of the property. A key component of this project, and I'll zoom in a little bit here, you'll note with those contours, these are 1-foot contours. The back of the house to the lower yard area drops about 21 feet, and that slope on average is about a 1.5 to 1. It's a pretty steep angle of repose for that soil there. That area is sort of got some ground cover on it and whatnot, but it's not particularly well stabilized. In terms of stormwater management, there's nothing really in place on the property now, so everything flows overland, downspouts discharge to the ground surface and flow in the topographic direction on the site. In terms of wetland resource areas, we have 2. We have an intermittent stream that's sort of toward the back of the property in an adjacent bordering vegetated wetland. You'll see the wetland flags delineated on the plan here along the north. We also have the 3 buffer zones delineated on the plan. We have 25-foot, the 50, and then just along the back edge of the house, we have the 100-foot buffer zone. Also, the west portion of the site is within a mapped endangered species habitat. I missed that on the application. Clay was astute enough to pick up on that. He mentioned that to me beginning of this week. We have subsequently mailed the application to NHESP and the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife. I have that proof of mailing that I'll get to Clay and Debbie for review. So in any scenario, they have not reviewed this yet, so there's going to have to be a continuance to at least address that component of the project. In terms of the proposal, actually one last thing, I do have a picture here. It's a good reference point. This is standing in the backyard, looking up toward the existing house. You'll see this slope here. This picture does not do it justice. It is a very steep and significant drop here from the just in the back of the house to the lawn. So the proposal is the construction of several terraces just behind the house, including 1 main terrace that holds up an in-ground pool. The 2 retaining walls that make up what we'll call the 2 sort of main terraces from the backyard up to the pool. Those walls are pretty significant. They're 7 and 6 feet in height, respectively. And those will be constructed to sort of level out the yard and work on that grade behind the house. We are keeping, the furthest retaining wall outside of the 50-foot buffer zone. So we kind of work backwards in terms of grading to make this fit so that there's no new structure within the 50-foot, but a good portion of that is located within or between the 50 and the 100-foot buffer zone. We are also proposing to fill a portion of the lower backyard here that is partly within the 50-foot buffer Right now, the site slopes downhill from the back of the house to a low point at the back of the site, and then back up sort of like a camelback up to another high area in the back of the property. I actually do have a picture that will show that. You can kind of see that here. So the slope is coming down on the left here. We have a sort of a level area, and then it comes back up about 4 or 5 feet. The intent here is to fill that area in to be able to take some of the curse off that elevation change behind the house to that edge of the limit of work. It doesn't change anything from a hydrologic perspective. The water still flows downhill and toward the same wetland resource areas. It's just breaking off in a sort of a different direction, left and right. Maybe say that again, not in a different direction, but just at a different elevation. There is some work proposed within the 25-foot no disturb zone. That is removal of an existing play area and some lawn that's located in that. So we're going to remove that lawn. We're going to let naturalized ground cover grow and plant 2 red maples to offset 2 trees that are coming down in the back of or the edge of the project here. We're also planting 7 additional trees for screening hemlocks along this back edge of the existing lawn. So we are taking some of the lawn area that's encroaching toward that resource area, and we're trying to renaturalize and plant that. The 2 trees that are coming out, we really can't avoid. One of them's a pine, the other one's a deciduous tree. I apologize, I don't have the species offhand. They're both about 30 inches in diameter. In terms of stormwater management, to offset the increase in impervious area associated with the project, this plan here is sort of a zoomed in version of that last plan, so you can see more detail on the closed drainage. It's a series of area drains and trench drains around the various pool patios and whatnot, as well as picking up some of the roof runoff that discharges to the back of the property now and routing it to an infiltration system located in this lower lawn area. It's worth noting that my plan and my drainage model and calculations do not include soil testing. That is something that I typically always want to conduct prior to designing a drainage system. In this particular case, because of how steep the slope is in the back of the property, in order to get a excavator down there, we would have to do a decent amount of grading just to create a stable road. It's not necessarily getting the excavator down, it's getting it back up after doing that testing. And before we started any sort of permitting process for this, I didn't want to get an excavator stuck in the backyard and have no way to get it out. So there are some conservative assumptions made in the drainage design. You know, this infiltration system is located within an area of about 3 to 4 feet of fill. And so if we strip that topsoil layer down and put those chambers in and then build up around it, it's a fair, reasonable assumption that we're not going to be within the groundwater table, as I'm basically putting those chambers at the existing ground surface and we're filling over that. Also, if we find soil that's not conducive to drainage when we eventually initiate the project and do testing, which is part of my request, is to do that at the outset of construction, there's ample area here to be able to increase this system. So if I had to, I'd just add more chambers and be able to quickly produce a drainage model that produces the same results as the one that's shown here on. Native soil maps do show that it's pretty good soil. So the expectation is that we're not going to run into anything that we can't work with, like a clay or a peat or anything like that. So that is sort of a waiver from, I know, your standard practices that I am requesting, and I think there's fair grounds to do that, but we could talk that over. In terms of regulatory compliance, I believe we've addressed most, if not everything, in the town standards and regulations for work within the buffer zones. Part of my narrative that was submitted with the application went through each of those bullet points for work within the buffer zone. As I said, we are doing some work within the 25-foot, but that is merely restoring an existing encroachment. So in our viewpoint, that's something that is reasonable to request. Lastly, we have quite a bit of other permitting to do with this. As I mentioned before, Natural Heritage does have to review the application, so we do have to wait for feedback from them. No idea what that endangered species habitat is. It does seem like it's sort of a radial sort of area in the map, not something that follows like a river or stream. So I'm not sure exactly what that is at all. And we do have the need for a couple special permits, or one special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals. Some of the walls located on the right-hand side of the property here exceed 4 feet in height within the side yard setback. So that does require a special permit. And prior to that, we have to go to design review to review that, that design. I think based on our schedule now, design review is going to happen mid-July, and I think we're going to wind up being in the August zoning board hearing. So that is something that we'd obviously have to continue with the Conservation Commission. I kind of a chicken and egg thing going on here, where I have to balance these. So we wanted to get the feedback from you to see, you know, how the project falls within your purview, and we'll also have to concurrently go through that ZBA process and hopefully close everything out around the same time. So that's a summary of the project, a little long-winded, but I can field any questions.
Very good. No, that was very helpful. Let me run through the commissioners first, and then I'll see if there are other issues that come up. So Artie, any questions?
No, I'm good.
Stephen?
Comments?
Sue?
2 trees are coming down, and
Yeah.
just wondering on which part of the buffer those trees are.
Those are in. Those are, I'll go to the existing conditions plan. Those are located about, I'd say 75 feet from the wetland. So it's between the 50 and the 100. It's these 2 trees here. They are in this picture. So the one directly in front of us here, that's a pine. And then this one behind it is some sort of deciduous tree. I'm not exactly, you might be able to identify it from the picture. I'm not that knowledgeable.
So 2 trees are going up within the 25-foot.
Yes, so we're putting two red maples are going up within the 25-foot. So you can see the play area square sort of back here. We're taking that out. So these 2 are going to go up in the 25. So we're taking some lawn area and we're revegetating that with 2 of the trees. And then along the back edge of lawn here, which is partly in the 50 and then a little bit in the 100, we're doing a series of hemlocks for screening.
Okay.
All right. And Allison?
Couple of things. One is that I was wondering why you couldn't put the subsurface infiltration in that lawn terrace area and not in that, like in there. Is there any reason?
Here.
Yeah.
So from a structural perspective, it's not ideal to put hydrostatic pressure behind that wall. You know, it is pretty tall, this lower wall here, you'll see, you know, sort of trying to minimize the grade, but in this area where my cursor is now, it's about 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
Give or take. That, you know, fitting the drainage behind there is really not possible. We're going to have mechanically stabilized earth behind there. So it's going to use geogrid and different courses of that block to stabilize that. So.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
I also was, as a landscape architect, I was thinking that it might sit a little bit nicer in the land if the whole pool, and I think you have room to do this, is like a couple of feet lower. This is just a suggestion. It's not a requirement,
Okay.
which is a couple of feet lower, because even though you say there's like a hump where you're putting this basin, you are actually filling in there. I'm looking at 80, 82. I mean, you're 84. I think you're filling a little bit. And,
Yeah, we're filling quite a
and
bit
the
back here.
grades behind that, like next to the wall, could be a little steeper. That wall, you could have a lower wall if you made that whole, just everything 2 feet lower. It just might, I know you're freaking out about getting down to it, but I think you have enough room with stairs to get down from the house. This is just a suggestion. It just feels a bit high to me. That's all.
You know, that's not, you're on, you know, from a design perspective, I can see that, you know, we were sort of hemming and hawing between, you know, where to place those terraces and whatnot. It is sort of a challenge here. You know, we're trying to avoid cutting, you know, see this profile here, the pools in this area, existing grade, you know, cutting that down might help, but we don't really want to cut it all.
Up the wall, the height of
house
the
is
walls
pretty
too.
steep.
you know.
Yeah, the walls go up, and so, yeah, we're sort of
That's
playing a
barrier.
balancing act. Yeah.
And then you could actually fill against the wall and have it steep, like instead of having so much wall revealed, you could have a steeper slope coming off of it. So,
back
so
there.
that, you know what I'm saying? So that the actual appear, even though maybe they don't want slopes, but you know, I just think it would sit in the, like, this is so structured, this whole landscape. You can reduce the height of the walls a little bit. Anything you can do to do that, I think that it'll look better on the site.
I think we're in a position where I think with the ZBA process, there's a good chance through the ZBA process and design review, this comes out a little bit differently. So you very well might see that, and that's, I think you're spot on with seeing some of the challenges of the site here.
That was it. That was all.
Oh,
Yeah.
Allison, I thought I was prepared to let you talk about the hemlocks, but
Oh, the hemlocks, I know, I mean, and yeah, hemlocks, I mean, I love hemlocks, I mean, I have them all over my yard, but you gotta spray them, you know that, right?
Spray them.
Okay,
We might end up winding up with a conifer that doesn't require the spraying, so that is sort of on the table.
all right.
So
Just make sure it's
we'll-
native.
Yes.
I mean, the thing is that they're so, I know that they're, you're cutting them down and they get to be, I mean, white pine are everywhere, I mean, that's what Needham is white pine. And they live, and they're far enough away, they're not gonna hurt the house. They grow really fast. I know they lose the lower branches, but in this case, who cares? Because you're so low, right? If you really want screening. It's just like hemlock, I don't know. Unless they're prepared to do that, be prepared to lose them.
We'll talk to the applicant and make sure that we'll conclude something.
I mean, maybe a couple of hemlock, just maybe not every one, I mean.
Yeah,
hemlocks are
intersperse something. This is what
Yeah,
happens when you let an
they're
engineer
beautiful. It's
decide
just
that. So,
all your eggs in one basket. Although they're not that many trees, you're not planting that many trees. Okay, that's it.
Thank you. Other things. So from what you were saying, it sounds like we don't have a test pit, but you argued that it would be hard at this time to do a test pit. Is that right?
yeah, I think we don't have a test pit. I'll show. I have a picture here. So on the left side of this picture, this is the slope we'd have to go down. That doesn't look that steep in the picture, but that's about a 2-to-1. And I don't want to get an excavator stuck in the backyard here. I think from an engineering standpoint, I've made reasonable assumptions of the variables that, we uncover with test pits. If it's something that you demand, I can get it done. I just don't want to do that much disturbance to the property, without knowing that there's, a project on the table that's permissible. So,
You might be amused, and we don't recommend this necessarily, but we had an applicant last meeting who actually dug the test pit on his own. He actually took a shovel and went out and dug the requisite number.
we
But
did
then
talk
Then we
about
made
that.
them do a professional one.
That's right.
No false advertising.
At any rate, yeah, Deb, is that a reasonable thing? I mean, I can't predict how Janet's going to react to this. I'm sure she has strong feelings one way or another. Do you think that's adequate, the assumptions, or do we really need to get down in there?
It seems reasonable. However, I'm kind of recusing myself from this. My brother's the surveyor that did the existing conditions plan. So I gave it to Clay to review. So.
Clay, what's your feeling?
Yeah, one of the kind of preemptive special conditions that I would use in this scenario is if you allow it, I certainly understand the argument. I think one of the special conditions would be to conduct the site, the test pit, and confirm that, or bring forth new plans prior to the construction of any structure. So you could start doing the site work and the earthen work enough to get that test pit done. We will have already checked the erosion controls and done the pre-con, but we won't be in a position where we couldn't change the layout of the pool and the walls should we need to, based on the test pit results.
Right. So there has to be pretty good coordination in each stage of the process to make sure that happens. All right. So it's not going to be a requirement necessary unless Janet has strong feelings about it. It won't be a requirement, it sounds, to have it done prior to us issuing a notice of intent or issuing the order of conditions. Anything else? People okay with the grading? I mean, it's not a quick slope into the neighbor's yard, but it is directed into the neighbor's property. That's going to be over grass.
A little bit of a swale if you look at the way it ties in.
So I think on the right side, I have a 3-to-1 slope here, sort of where that play area was located. And this area will be revegetated. So that's all within our property. It'll continue to flow down toward the BVW within our property limits. That's why I chose to put the overflow from this drainage system in that direction.
Yeah. So
the one that flows to the neighbor is a little less steep. I have that at a 4 or 5-to-1 here. Again, it doesn't change what direction things are flowing. It's just now that this area is filled, this flat area is perched up a little bit and flows this way versus being depressed and then flowing in those same directions. So.
and right now you just have basically outspouts feeding into that area anyway. So okay.
Yeah, everything just kind of flows down the hill. So.
All right. Clay, any other considerations?
All of the comments that I prepared have pretty much been addressed, which included the priority habitat and natural heritage's review, the soil test pit data. The other piece that I had was just that I think because we have the removal of the play structure, I know we've done plantings as an exempt activity in the 25. We just need a formal request for waiver of the 25-foot no alteration zone. You've already made justifications in the narrative. You did lay out the stuff. We just need the formality of that request, as well as a request for the waiver of the waiver fee. Otherwise, like I said, you made the justifications there in the narrative. You could pretty much be copied and pasted from point B in the list of performance standards that you laid out.
Okay.
And that's all I had.
Excellent. So is there anyone in the audience?
There is not, no.
All right, so there will be no audience feedback, I guess. All right, so I think you've heard the concerns of the commissioners at this meeting. And so we will be continuing. I guess the question is, when do you think you're going to be ready for a next hearing?
I think that might be a question to kick back to Clay or Debbie. I don't know how the commission usually operates when there's a concurrent permitting process. My concern here would be, I think I can close out the remaining issues for the notice of intent fairly soon, just waiting on natural heritage. But that doesn't mean that the ZBA process won't generate an adjustment or change to the plans. If anything, what's going to happen is the patio and walls are going to be reduced in scale. I think if we don't get the special permit, we have a game plan for adjusting if we need to, and that would be a reduced size. But I still don't like to have two different sets of plans approved for a project because that gets convoluted. So my preference would be, if the board's okay, be almost to continue indefinitely until we kind of close out the ZBA process. We'll continue to work with natural heritage and update the board if something happens then. But I think, I don't know, it seems like if August is our first ZBA hearing, there's no point sort of coming back and trying to close this out until then. So,
Clay, what's your feeling?
My recommendation would be to close I think you have to continue to a date certain. I think
Okay.
the first milestone for us to continue to and keep continuity should probably be the meeting on July 22nd. I'm hoping that'll be enough time for the natural heritage review. That way we can address any of those even before you get to that ZBA process. From there, we might have a better idea of the scheduling around ZBA, and we could continue to maybe like the first meeting in September, or when we think that ZBA process would be done. This allows us also to hit milestones in case there are revisions that pop up. We're not having to wait to reopen it until that date certain way in the future.
Makes
So
sense
for-
to me.
For this round, I would recommend July 22nd.
All right, very good. I take a motion to continue the hearing of 83 Rolling Lane
So moved.
until July 22nd.
So moved.
Second?
Okay.
All right, all in favor. Artie,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Allison? I saw your mouth say aye. That's good. Sue?
Aye.
Aye. Peter? Aye. All right, so this is going to be, we'll see you again on July 22nd, and hopefully we have some updates then.
Sounds good. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night. All right, other business. Looks like we have a request for certificate of compliance for a very familiar property. Needham's Accessible Reservoir Trail at 500 Dedham Avenue. DEP file number 234761. Scott, you're here to represent that?
Yes, landscape architect for the Beta Group in Norwood, and we did the design for the reservoir trail back in 2015 and 16, and we're looking for the certificate of compliance. So we had gone out in the field with a GPS unit and took shots at a lot of key points along the boardwalk and along the trail just to make sure elevations were where we wanted them. And we made note of a few different changes in location due to either saving trees or whatnot. And I pointed that out on the plan and on the memo. I can, if you want, we can go over the plan to take a walk around the
Yes,
loop.
you can give us some highlights. Thank you.
Okay, let me share that then. Okay, so this is our as-built plan, kind of a large scale, but it shows Dedham Ave would be out here, PSAP building is here, and the reservoir is out here. It's a half-mile loop, as you may know. There was an existing trail along much of the area. Might have been a foot or two wide here and there and went through some low areas. And there were also 2 wells that have been abandoned and revegetated as part of this work. So that was quite successful there. So we start in the parking lot of PSAP. There's a couple spaces dedicated to the NART trail and a walkway up to the boardwalk that's overlooking over the water next to the ledge. The one minor change, I guess, during construction in this one area. I don't know if it was to save a tree or some grading. Again, I was involved in the design, but I wasn't as heavily involved during the construction phase. But the path just continues along this east side, coming near a couple of close residences. We did change the path location. It existed in an existing form. It went through the wet areas. So when we had it flagged and approved, we moved it outside in that case. And we did plant some plantings along that area. This area in here where it was the existing trail, and I can show you the picture of that. I thought we were going to be planting it, but I think it was so dense that they decided not to. And I can show you just one picture of that area. So this is that area where the existing trail was, and it's already, somewhat obliterated and growing over with vegetation. The trail moves around. There's a little fishing pier that you can walk out into the water or above the water, which is very nice. And then the boardwalk system starts out moving out towards the golf course driving range out here. There was an existing well out here, and I can show you those pictures as well. It was a large concrete well that had to be taken out, filled in, and then we created, we did some restoration planning, did some grading. So there's a few high and low points, and it was planted. There's some birch and maple and dogwood, viburnum, and blueberry, and a lot of sedges have come up, and there was wild geranium I noticed the other day. You can see another picture here, a lot of ferns growing in. So we've had pretty good success there, I believe. And then this is well restoration area number 2. Again, a similar location as 1. It's a wet areas of large well. There wasn't quite as much disturbance to the surrounding ground that we expected, so that was good. Again, we did the same type of planting with maple. There's a lot of blueberry. There's some clethra. We tried to put in a witch hazel. I don't think that did very well. But again, there's a lot of ferns and a lot of sedges. And that, just on the plan, that's in here. We had named this portion of the boardwalk kind of like was going through the oak forest. There's some very large, 3 foot diameter oaks that are through here. They're really nice. And that was a design change during construction to save a couple of those trees. And we moved the boardwalk a little bit there. Moving to the west side, we did have a little washout, so that we ended up putting a little bit of cement concrete path in because the water was just overflowing this area and just really ruining the trail. So that's been taken care of, and that seems to be holding up very well. Again, the sides are nicely filled in with, just some native vegetation, forest stuff and debris, and it looks quite good there. And then we come to the large bridge crossing. So again, being ADA accessible, there's, we designed it with 4.5% ramps going up across the level part of the bridge and then back down. This was extended again during construction. The wood ramp was because they decided to build the bridge at a little higher elevation. So we had to go a little further out with our wood ramp. I don't really think that changed much. And then we have, a few benches along the way at the wells and along this one area next to the parking lot where people can either fish or change their skates when they go skating in the winter, or if they're doing the power boats and all that. So from a design and use point of view, I think it was pretty successful. I think the restoration areas of the 2 wells were very successful. We did have some dieback on some of the plant material around the trail, but as I said in the memo, I think we've reached 75% on both the trees and the shrubs and the ground covers and things. So I think we're okay there. Unfortunately, we did not do the required monitoring, the 1 and 2 year. It somehow slipped through the cracks between us and the person that the builder had hired, the contractor. So we just don't have that information. We did have some inspection reports by that same person during the process, but then that just kind of went away until I went out myself, just a month ago, and we're reviewing the planting, reviewing the trail, and then doing the GPS work. So.
Very good. Thank you. Yes. Deb and Clay, what are you thinking?
Hello. So in general, I think pretty much everyone here has walked the trail probably more than once. Since it was constructed, it's very well received, always busy, and overall just, really nice. Eddie Olson, worked with the contractor kind of when things would die back as far as, procuring what would be replacements and such. So I spoke to him earlier today, and he found the plantings to be successful. There were some issues with the spruces right off the parking lot with some dieback, but I guess the contractor put in more than was required once those died back to make up for that. As he mentioned, as Scott mentioned, the only real issue is the monitoring reports. So they were supposed to be year 1, year 2, and year 5. So we didn't receive any of the required reports. So I had reached out to the contractor and to Beta some time ago trying to get the reports, but apparently they were never done. So I don't know if the town paid for them and just never received them. So at this point, I think it's up to the commission whether they want to go with, I went and I walked out there this afternoon and took a look, and besides a lot of invasive species, I think the plantings overall did well. I spoke to Eddie, as I mentioned, but we didn't receive the reports, and there was a soil requirement as part of the order to make sure that the redoxymorphic hydric soil indicators were present after year 2. So it's up to the commission where they want to go from here. You can issue the certificate of compliance if you're comfortable. The town can continue to try to get at least a final monitoring report from the wetlands consultant, or as I mentioned, I did a walk around today and found everything to be stable. But if you wanted further soil evidence or something like that, staff could provide that as well.
I think you hit the nail on the head, Deb. I think the bottom line is that the project's complete and stable. Most of the plant growth looks great.
Yeah.
The trail looks great. So I mean, it's unfortunate that we didn't have the monitoring reports. I think those are probably more valuable at that time, 1 or 2 years afterwards. I don't know what
Right.
value they give us now after the project's complete 5 years later.
Right.
But I think all in all, it's I would vote to issue the order or certificate of compliance.
Stephen, I'll go around the other commissioners. Artie, what you're thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I think the same thing. I think it's at this point, how would we treat other people? Well, I think what the main thing that matters is what is the condition of the site now? How well did it do? That's, I think, how we treat anyone else. So
I think that generally speaking, so we require 2-year monitoring. And if we don't get the 1st year reports, we usually require the 2nd year report for the closeout of the COC. Just to, state that point of what we require. I'm not saying we need to do that in this case by any means.
But just for the record.
Just clarifying.
Sue, what are your thoughts?
I'd kind of like just to be consistent with monitoring reports. I'd kind of like to see it's just a simple summary for a final monitoring report. Otherwise, we're not setting. It's not a good precedent with what will come up in the future.
Well, this one's a little bit more, right? So this was supposed to be a 1, 2, and then now is the 5. Is that correct?
Correct.
So they did submit
5-year one. Right.
A 5. I mean, so we do have what we normally use for the COC.
So there is a form of a monitoring report for year 5.
Yes.
Okay, I'm good then. Okay.
Allison?
Yeah, I think that if things hadn't done well, then we need to, but because things have done well, that I would agree with Artie and Stephen, that I don't think it's really giving any value to the project. I don't know the whole, we paid for it or not, I don't know. I think the fact you have a project that looks really great, and also that I really appreciate that they modified the design in the field. Not all people do that. And that took extra time and work and care and attention to the site. You know, they just didn't plow through and kill trees and things like that. And I mean, not that they would have, I mean, most people wouldn't, but this in particular, there were a lot of places where they modified it and improved it. And I think that that's a sign of a good designer and a good company and a good engineer, and you're getting value, the town got value for their money. So I think it's a great project, and I'm a little jealous I didn't get to do it. So I appreciate it. It's a great project, and I think that we're lucky to have it. That's my.
Thank you, Allison. All right. Yeah, and I'm inclined to agree with you. I mean, I think this is just that long-term question about the value of these monitoring reports. And if people aren't going to do them, what's the point of requiring them? Particularly if they end up getting the COC anyway. But that's a larger discussion, perhaps, beyond this particular plan. So let's take a vote to issue the certificate of compliance. Take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All right. As part of that motion, I probably should have given you more details. What's the official address of this?
500 Dedham Ave.
500 Dedham Ave. Okay, so that's the motion. All in favor, Artie,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Sue,
Aye.
Allison, and Peter, aye. So the ayes have it. You have your certificate of compliance. Thank you
Great.
very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, so other business. So we do have a set of minutes. Do people have a chance to look at the minutes yet? They were emailed.
I did.
Sue, did you have
I
any
wasn't there,
modifications?
so I can't comment.
I have 4 things.
Ah,
Why? It's excellent as usual. Excellent as usual. Excellent. Artie is IE, not ARY.
Again,
looking out for you.
once again into the breaches.
It was the same template I made the last 2 sets on. I apologize, didn't fix the template.
And under 40, is it 140, Kendrick? In the with the second to last sentence of that passage, I think you meant that you were talking about the pipe outlet. There was a word "that" in there that I don't think needed to go in there.
C. Hutchinson requested additional information on plastic corrugated piping that outlet on the far side of the DCR path. Yeah, there's some. What was the intention?
That is an incorrect set of minutes there. I apologize. 140 was actually removed from this. It was a different meeting. You can disregard this set of minutes. It looks like my OneDrive did not update on the system that I mailed these out on. So you got the older version.
Yeah.
So this is like a
And
double.
The question was, it was going to continue in October too.
Yeah, so
it's different.
yeah, I think Clay used a template and then it didn't update what the things that he intended to remove.
Yeah, on the work
So
PC,
if you don't mind
but-
editing it again and trying this again next time, I guess. All right.
The only other thing I sent you about the Nuwari town statement, that they're looking for boards and commissions to vote to approve, implement. But I'm thinking maybe we'll table it till next meeting since Janet and Bill aren't here. And kind of, but if you have a chance, I did email it to you separately. So if you can read it before the next meeting, would be good.
And that's just to say the commission is in accordance with the,
Board of Selectmen.
yeah, and at this point, there's no particular actions that we're required to make, though there is some implications for long-term actions, right? Particularly
Correct.
in terms of board membership,
Mm-hmm.
which I kind of agree that might be something we should address,
Mm-hmm.
given the makeup of this board during the time I've been here. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Deb. So that's it for issue for this evening.
I think so, Clay. Am I missing anything? I'm sorry, Sue.
What are we doing about, do we pass the minutes or not? It's going to be reviewed. It's going to be.
No, we need to resubmit them.
Okay.
Boy, Clay.
Oh, boy.
All right. Very good. So I will let you know when the signature sheets are there. And have a great weekend.
You
Thank you very
too.
much. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Again.
Have a nice
Good night.
weekend.
You
Again.
too.
Thanks, Pete. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks.